Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a very exciting video because we're going to be talking about storytelling and all about writing books, stories, things like that. So get ready, it's going to be a fun one. Stories enable us to meet with the impossible. They enable us to grow, to create, to make mistakes, and to learn from them, all within the safety of our own imaginations and creative abilities. These are some of the magical aspects of storytelling that have made us fall in love with it and crave it as human beings. In this video, we'll just kind of go through a few tips that you can use in your own storytelling, whether you have a story idea currently or you are thinking up one or want to have one. Hopefully you'll be able to gain something. So whether you already have an idea for a story swirling around in your head or you have absolutely no clue where to even begin, you never know where or how a story can be born. A story can be born from a simple experience, a conversation, a person, a picture that you see, music that you listen to, a single word or thought. But I think that's just another really mysterious beauty of stories, that they can spring up from any kind of unexpected moment and last a lifetime and impact a lot of people, including yourself. So with all that said, let's dive into a few ways to get inspired and motivated for story writing. If you are just starting to entertain ideas for a new story, I would offer up the advice of continuing to explore and navigate through the experiences and the world that you're trying to build. You can ask yourself questions about the world, about the characters. Think about the main plot points and where you want your characters to come from and where you want them to go. And it may sound strange at first, but really immerse yourself in the world that you're building and with the characters. Walk with the characters, learn from them, interact with them, meet them, experience the things that they experience, and talk with them. That does sound really weird. The main point is just to immerse yourself so that you can immerse your reader. You therefore have the authority to tell the story because you have been there. So I'm kind of going to divide the tips up into two main sections. The first one more so when you're needing inspiration for a story idea, and then the second set of tips is after you kind of have a story idea already and you're just needing to get some things down for it. So the first 5 tips would be, if you are needing inspiration for a story idea, would simply be to go on a story walk. Me and my sister absolutely loved doing these. It's just getting out into nature, getting some movement in, and walking. In our experience, it just really helps you open up your mind to new things, new thoughts. It really gets your creative juices flowing and you can start thinking about new characters, new things that they might encounter, world building, just all kinds of things like that. And then if you are able to do it with another person, you can kind of bounce off ideas with them. But it also is very helpful even if you are just taking a walk by yourself to kind of think through stories and story ideas and characters. Second tip would be to watch movies, and not only watch movies like kind of passively, but actively watch movies, like study them. Maybe not necessarily with, studying every single plot detail and character trait and, all of their struggles and what they're going through, but at least kind of take notes and see how the story progresses, how the characters develop in it, what the main opposition points are, how they overcome those. It's just really fun to kind of look at a movie in that way that maybe you've seen a lot of times, but then if you are really looking at how the plot is going and how they're developing, it is very interesting to get that new perspective on it, and it can also help you in your own story writing and creation. The third tip goes along those lines a little bit, kind of the same as watching movies, is read. Read so much, because the more that you read, the more it gets your mind going with new ideas and things that you can kind of draw from. And I noticed in my own experience that the more I read, the more I want to write stories and the more that I have creative ideas and things that I am able to pour into writing. So know that reading really fuels that. So I would encourage that as a third tip, to read a lot. That will tremendously help you in your inspiration for writing and even your writing skills as well, because kind of like watching movies, you can almost study the books that you're reading and see how the plot and characters are being developed. The fourth tip in this section is to listen to music. Music I'm sure that you know this, but it has a really unique capability to kind of tap into all different kinds of emotions and inspire you depending on what kind of music you are listening to and the emotions that it is causing you to feel. It can really fuel certain things that you are trying to convey in your writing. For example, of course, if you're trying to write a really sad scene, try listening to some sad music. It really does help in writing. Or if you're trying to write a happy scene, again, as it makes sense, just listen to some happy music and it can help you tremendously in your writing. I've known that if I am listening to sad music and I'm trying to write a sad part in a story, it really helps if I was not listening to any music at all and trying to write that. That is the 4th tip. The 5th tip in this first section is, I will admit, a little bit weird, maybe strange to think about, but interact with animals. You can learn a lot from animals and their characteristics. That can help you in your writing, whether if you have animal characters or, I don't know, it can just be fun to sit with them and just learn from how they work and how they look at things and how they interact. So, kind of a bonus weird tip. Interact with animals. You never know what you'll get. And in the second half of these story writing tips, if you kind of already have an idea for your story and you know the general plot points and things like that of what you want, the first tip after you've gotten to this point is, of course, outline your plot points. That way you have a whole idea of how your story is going to kind of generally go from start to end. Of course, it can change as you're writing, but at least you kind of have these guidelines to base it all off of, and that can help tremendously. The next 2 tips kind of go hand in hand, so I'll just merge them together. It would be to draw out some art, whether it's like maps or your characters or just places, things like that, color schemes even, I don't know, but that can really help kind of get your world on paper visually so you can see it and interact with it to a further degree. And then the next tip that goes along with this is to look at concept art that other people have done, either for other stories or maybe they've just done art and you really connect with it and your story kind of lines up with it. You can really gain a lot of inspiration from doing that. And then the next tip is kind of a really practical one. It is when you're trying to actually get words down on the story, is to just time block, maybe set like a timer for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and set that timer and just sit down. Try to focus your mind on the writing, on whatever portion of the story you are working on, and just write for that time period. And then once that time period is over, stop and take a break and repeat it or read what you have, and that kind of can just help you actually do it rather than always constantly thinking about, oh, I have to write that at some point. If you kind of schedule it, it helps you actually get it done. And a little progress over time does make a difference. So don't get discouraged by just doing a little bit every day. Then finally, the last tip for this section is to ask for feedback. I know it might be a little nerve-wracking at first to ask people read your story, especially if it's like your first time doing it or if you don't know how they're going to receive your story. Do it anyway. I mean, it can be really helpful to get other people's perspective on the story, even just to have them read it and, you know, give you confirmation on things. You can even have specific questions to ask them or specific things that you want them to look for as they read through your story, or if you just want them to read it, just to read it. It can be really helpful to just get in the habit and practice of letting someone else read your work and receive feedback from them, because again, like I said, having a different perspective on what you have written really helps. And they might see something that needs to be clarified so that the reader can understand more about the story or the characters or kind of where the plot is going that you can easily fix, and then it'll just make the experience that much better for the reader. But yeah, those are the main tips that I have for this video. I really appreciate you watching and hope that you are inspired to continue working on your story if you have one already, or if you don't, to get out there and get inspired to write your story. I wish you the very best with it, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.